Okay, great. I now call this meeting of Animal Care Services Advisory Board to order. Cynthia, will you please do a roll call?
Absolutely. Amin Tomas.
Here.
Okay. Cindy Cox.
I'm here.
Thank you, ma'am. Martha Banda. George Garcia. I'm sorry, George, you're muted. Oh, George, I can't hear you.
Present.
Thank you, sir. Rita Brodigan.
Here.
Karen Spear.
Here.
Kathy Davis.
Here.
Val Moore.
Here.
Katie Yarl. Susan Belden.
Here.
Thank you. Sally Scott. Marilyn Gottbetter. Shannon Sims.
Here.
David McCary.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Cynthia. The time is now, let's see, we have 7:40. Oh, 6:40. Sorry, I'm in Michigan. 7:40 here. Okay. All right, the Animal Care Services Advisory Board is an advisory appointed by City Council. I'm Rita Brodigan, Chair, and Vice Chair is Susan Belden. It is the function of the board to assist and advise the City of San Antonio regarding animal care services through recommendations, reports, and by representing ACS in the community with our assigned council districts. Members of the public can watch this meeting through YouTube Live or listen to the meeting through audio only by calling 415-655-0001 and using access code 1771098522. Again, those numbers for audio only, it's 415-655-0001 and the access code is 1771098522. This meeting is being recorded. Now, ACS staff, I asked Cynthia to provide additional instructions for today's meeting. Cynthia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the call are our board members, as noted by the roll call, Assistant City Attorney Camilla Canal, and ACS staff, including Interim Chief Operations Officer Bethany Colonese and myself. I am Cynthia Martinez, and I am the Department's Senior Management Coordinator and today's meeting liaison. I will start by providing an overview of today's meeting's format. To ensure that today's meeting runs smoothly and effectively, board members, we ask that you all keep yourselves muted unless you are speaking. If a board member would like to speak, we ask that you unmute yourself, state your name, wait for the chair to acknowledge you, then proceed. This will make sure we know who is speaking at all times and also that we are not speaking over one another. We also ask that you refrain from using the chat tool and keep all comments on the record. All voting will be done by roll call. When I call your name, please unmute your microphone, indicate your vote, then remute yourself. We will do this slowly each time to make sure that all board members are able to vote. All board members must be visible and audible to vote this evening. For each individual item, ACS staff members will start by either making a presentation or providing subject matter verbally.
When I call your name, please unmute your microphone, indicate your vote, mute yourself. We will do this one time to make sure that all board members are able to vote. individual and
I am not sure why I'm repeating myself.
For each individual item, ACS staff members will start by either making a presentation or providing subject matter.
Cynthia, whoever is 2106 with an ending in 49 is currently unmuted, and it sounds like they're watching the YouTube live.
It was pretty impressive talking without your lips moving.
You're muted, Cynthia.
Now. Oh, man. For each individual item, ACS staff members will start by either making a presentation or providing subject matter verbally. After the details of the item have been provided, board members may ask to be recognized by the chair to discuss the item and ask any follow-up questions to the presenter. Finally, members of the public were invited to submit public comments before tonight's meeting began to have them read aloud by staff. Comments were due at 4 p.m. with instructions posted on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Each comment must be 300 words or less. If the comment contains more than 300 words, I will read the comments until I reach the 300th word, at which I will stop. We received 11 electronic submittals for public comments. At that, we are ready to view the agenda. Madam Chair, the floor is yours. You're muted, Rita.
First item on today's agenda is the director's report. Shannon, would you like to make any comments?
Yes, ma'am, I would. I can get it to come up. All right, so the main thing that I wanted to kind of cover is obviously we've seen a lot of challenges throughout the entire world over the last 18 months. Last year, ACS saw a marked decrease in the number of animals that we impounded due to COVID-19. We took that opportunity, the kind of lag in operational, operational tempo, to make some improvements. Here with the staff, we did some team reorganizations for efficiency. We conducted some extensive campus beautification projects, which hopefully the next time we all get together, you folks will all be able to see. And we relocated our adoption center from the back of one of our kennel buildings up to the front, made it really nice and welcoming. Between April and June of this year, we've impounded roughly 7,100 animals, just north of 7,100 animals. To put it into perspective, this is about 1,000 more animals than we impounded in a typical year or last year. Some of this was due to, things are starting to go back to normal. We're starting to see people go back to their normal lives. Some of this is due to a decrease in spay-neuter that we saw last year, as many clinics, were closed for periods of time due to COVID. And also as we, just kind of have seen folks slowly start to get spun back up from the spay-neuter capacity. While this influx has created some distinct challenges in getting animals rehomed, it's also a seasonal challenge that we experience every typical year. While these challenges have kind of been going on, just to put it into perspective, ACS has still, in this very difficult time, been able to maintain a live release rate from October until July 1st of 91.9%. That is through the end of June, rather. Give you kind of a measuring stick, that is actually up from 2019, which is the last typical year that we had. In 2019, we were at 90.5% live release rate at this particular time. So we know that we're going to have that surge in animals coming in during that time frame. And unfortunately, it's kind of difficult for everyone right now because I think everyone kind of got used to what last year's norm was, which was a little bit slower operational tempo. As the interim director over the last 8 months, I've witnessed a Herculean effort by the rescue community, and they continue to pull a large number of animals, oftentimes at great personal expense, in the form of finances as well as just their personal lives, with the main cause basically of saving animals in San Antonio. In closing, I'd just like to say that I look forward to getting through this tough time, moving forward some progressive plans that myself and the staff and the city manager's office are working on to help keep animals in homes, solve problems in the community, and kind of rectify some of the issues that contribute to the issues that we deal with during those really, really rough springtime and early summer seasons. So again, thank you to, again, all my ACS staff. Thank you to the board members who contribute your time, and very, very much of a thank you goes out to our rescue community who continue to just be rock stars. And that's all I've got, ma'am.
Thank you, Shannon. Does anyone have any questions for Shannon on his report? Okay, we will move on to the next item. The next 3 items for today's meeting are on the consent agenda. Do any board members who wish, are there any board members that wish to pull any of these items for individual consideration? Please remember to state your name first and then unmute yourself. Okay.
It looks like we're good.
Okay, so are we now ready to entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda? Susan?
I needed to make a correction on the board meeting minutes from last time. Is now the time to do that?
That
Yes,
would
ma'am.
be.
Okay. On page 2 of 3, under item 3, the last sentence should be "and her satisfaction with their construction." There is spelled incorrectly.
Okay. I will make that correction right now.
Okay, so we are now ready to entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda with the items that Susan has spoken. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve consent agenda? Anybody?
Kathy Davis?
Thank you, Kathy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Amin Thomas.
Okay, amen. Thank you. Having heard a motion to approve the consent agenda, which has been seconded, can we have a roll call, please?
Amin Tomas.
Yes.
Cindy Cox. I'm sorry, you're muted, Cindy.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you, ma'am. That's okay. Thank you. Martha Banda. George Garcia.
Yes.
Rita Brogdon.
Yes.
Karen Spear.
Yes.
Thank you. Kathy Davis.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Val Moore.
Yes.
Thank you. Katie Yarl. Susan Belden.
Yes.
Thank you. Sally Scott. I'm sorry, Sally, you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. That we have 1, 2, 8 ayes and no nays. The motion passes.
Thanks, Cynthia. Next on the agenda is item 4. It's a briefing on ACS Advisory Board's on-site engagement opportunities. This presentation is in response to the Education Committee's continuing education opportunities for board members. Bethany Colonnese, Interim Chief Operations Officer, will provide the briefing. Bethany, it's all yours.
Thank you. I apologize. My video is not working. Not that you need to see me. Cynthia, are you going to put the slide up or do you want me to put it up?
There you go, ma'am. Can you guys see it?
No.
Yeah.
Of course not. Oh, no, swap. How about now? It froze.
I'm going to try sharing my screen.
Looks like it's going. I'm sorry. It's just with all the everything open, it gets a little slow.
Alrighty. So this is kind of a sampling that we came up with in terms of what we think might be of interest and what we're able to provide to the board. If you see something that, or you don't see something more important that you're interested in, you can email Cynthia or myself and we can see if it's something that's available. So this is just a little bit of a taster. So in shelter, you're obviously welcome to come and kind of see what our supervisors and our managers do on their daily routines, how they get set up for the day. The ever exciting kennel cleaning. If you have a burning desire to come and pick up poop, this is your time to come and do this. We will appreciate the free labor for this. You can go through kind of daily cleaning protocols and the process. This is something that a lot of people do ask about in terms of how long it takes, what are the proper protocols, what are the chemicals you use. And you really do get to see in this process why it is important that we never drop the guillotine doors and we have access to move animals back and forth to those double-sided kennels. I think this is something that really kind of is eye-opening to people. You get to see the AM movement of animals into surgery, and then what we like to refer to as playing the game of Tetris to save as much space as possible to reduce euthanasia. We really do use a lot of creativity at this time. Space decisions and kind of the daily setup. Clinic is probably the one that we get asked the most to have kind of a looky look into there. Unfortunately, given the sensitivity of some of the items going on in there and just the small space, this is probably the area that we're not going to be able to give a long-term look at, but you certainly can come and look at surgery recovery. And when I mean look at it, you'll be in there for 5 minutes and then you're going to have to go, just because there's no good way to say this. Everybody is in the way in the surgery recovery area, but you do get to see the small space that they operate in. You'll get to see the staff. You'll kind of get to see the process. You can go on the daily medication rounds with the staff and just see truly how many animals, both in our clinic and in our main kennels, are on medications. And then, of course, we have our bottle baby rack. You can see how many animals at any given time we're bottle feeding, every 2 to 3 hours. And then on top of that, trying to find placement for. I think this is probably something that's really kind of eye-opening to people to see just how many bottle babies are coming in every single day. The field officer ride-along, very popular. This would be an all-day thing because the officers do not come back here. So if you choose this one, bring your lunch, bring a beverage, and bring some pocket change to stop at McDonald's because they leave at 7 and they're not coming back until 3 o'clock. But you'll get to see how the dispatch system works. You get to see them responding to calls in the field, finding pets, hopefully finding that microchip and reuniting them with their family. Of course, the issuing of citations. This would be a long day, but definitely you'll really get to see the officers interact with the public. Our education team, this is a little bit more in-house. You'll get to see the creating social media content as we have it available and how they're responding to the social media questions. We do have our main Facebook page, which has the opportunity to ask questions and have messages, and you'll get to see just the myriad of questions that we get asked. And under education, we have bottle baby feeding. I'm not too sure why that's under education, Cynthia.
Because it can't be perfect all the time, Bethany.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know if you had something new. I was
just
like, great.
Most of the time.
I didn't know if the education team was taking over bottle baby feeding. I will send that right over.
It's a suggestion. It's a suggestion.
Yeah, there you go. They'll be happy to hear that. The intake center, this is something that we were able to finally move into the 21st century and have in terms of having a comprehensive and kind of one-stop shopping center for our intake. You'll get to see both the live release, the clinic team, and as well as the shelter team working together to try and get as much information from those pets at the point of intake, as opposed to we used to do it over the next couple of days. So you'll get to see pictures. We rescan for microchips. We're doing heartworm tests, and we're looking at breeds and ages. We're getting the flea and tick application on them, and then really looking and getting them kenneled up. So this is actually very interesting, and you can sit there and watch this process for a few hours. It's a decently sized room for this. Our adoption staff, adoptions, we recommend somewhere between 1 and 5 p.m. You don't have to stay for the whole time. You're certainly welcome to. You can kind of watch the overview process from the staff, but you won't be able to sit there while they're doing an adoption, because it's a little bit more of a one-on-one conversation with the adopter and the staff, and having, you know, kind of a third party sitting there. There's exchange of private information, but we can walk through the process and how it works. You can come along for their glamour shots, where they try and get some really good pictures for those that really didn't take a good picture in the intake center. Maybe they weren't in the best shape. Maybe they were a little bit scared. And you can see the adoption counselors outside doing matchmaking. They have a computer. They're outside just kind of directing traffic, talking to people, helping them get animals out. I think this is really rewarding, because you really do kind of get to make that connection with the adopters. Our rescue foster staff, again, a lot of this is on the computer, but you truly will get to see what a sheer crazy number of emails that comes in a short period of time looks like. I'm talking 100 emails will literally come in the span of 5 hours, and they have to sort through these as quickly as they can, get the pertinent information out, find out which ones are legitimate, and get the holds placed, answer the questions as the rescue groups have them, and try and get as much information to get them out. You'll get to see the rescue foster staff kind of creating plays for specific pets, whether it's an animal that they know is going to have a problem finding placement, or if it's an animal that's in the clinic and just needs an extra special care. We do get questions from rescue groups, and we try and give them as much information as we can. We'd love to be able to do full evaluations on every pet, but unfortunately the pets outnumber the people. And then playgroup, once we get our trainers back, as well as we get through the distemper phase, the higher season for distemper, which is what we're in right now. So we are very cautious about animal-to-animal interaction in the kennels during the summer. Probably in the fall, we'll be able to have playgroup back safely. And then our volunteer services, when our volunteers team member hopefully gets hired and comes on in the next month, you'll be able to see the orientations, how they're supporting the campus, and then how they're using targeted recruitment to be able to really find those quality volunteers. And then going back to our trainers, when we have them available, you'll be able to see them doing observing dog training classes, both large ones and individual ones, as well as doing playgroup for adult dogs. And then the evaluation of the pets for needed interventions to increase availability of fine placement. So this is where they're kind of walking through the kennels, and they're quickly looking at the pets that are going to need a little extra special time, whether it's, you know, a plea or a rescue group that handles, you know, some of the specialized behavior cases that we see, you know, whether or not they just need, you know, somebody to go in there and sit with them and pet them for a few minutes, or whether or not they need to come up to an office and really decompress. They're able to give a lot of good information to the rescue foster team, so that rescue groups have that information. So a lot of these can be tailored around your schedule. When I did put times, it's when obviously that is going to be the most opportune time. There's not a lot to see in adoptions at 9 a.m. in the morning. They're just looking at emails. There's not going to be a lot to see in the clinic after 7 o'clock at night. And so I tried to put the times that you're going to see the most action. And then there's just the only one that really has some very specific things would be the field ride along, just because once you're out in the field, you're going to have to stay out with them. So does anyone have any questions or see something that's missing or you have questions about on the list? I couldn't have done that good a job of explaining it.
Cynthia, can you see the entire board? I cannot.
I can, and no one is indicating they have a question.
Okay, I would like to make a comment and just say thank you for all the work that you put into arranging these dates and what you think will be the greatest opportunity for us on the board. And I hope that all of the members find one or more things that they really have an interest in seeing, and will take advantage of this. But thank you for the time that it took to put this opportunity list together for us. And thank you to the education team, that ad hoc committee that came up with this request. I think it's going to be something that we all enjoy. Are there any other questions, comments?
Just remember to reach out to Cynthia or myself directly to get scheduled for this, and we'll certainly hope it'll be an eventful day, that you learn something, and we'll put you cleaning kennels and bottle feeding. We'll get some work out of you.
Good. Sounds like a good plan. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so if there's no further questions, we'll move on to agenda number 5. And this is a presentation on ACS current vacancies. Our last board meeting, Shannon had mentioned that there were like 24 vacancies at that time 2 months ago. So we asked if Shannon would please give us an update and let us know where you are on that, the process. Shannon, it's all yours.
All right, Cynthia, if you can please bring up the brief. Okay, next slide. And so this is a pretty short brief. Basically, what I wanted to do is kind of give you guys a snapshot of what it's looked like through the year for us. Can you go to the next slide, Cynthia?
I'm trying, sir. It's terrible. And it's still not updating yours. Oh, no.
Oh, we can see you kind of clicking through it.
Let's do this.
There we go. Can everybody read that and see it pretty well? All right.
Okay.
Okay, so for fiscal year 2021, ACS's total budget is $16.1 million. That funds not only our field operations and our clinic, chems and meds and things like that, but a large part of any expenditure for any organization is going to be the manpower, the boots on the ground, the people that are doing the work. At ACS, we have a total count of 154 positions, and this last year, we, obviously COVID put a cramp in every single municipality's style when it came to, what's it going to look like? Nobody understood or really kind of could forecast accurately what the fiscal year is going to look like for each municipality. So we went out and we kind of had some budget constraints that we were operating in to make sure that we could be standardized. Every department kind of had to take a bite of their perspective piece of the pie in holding back some savings. For ACS, that resulted in $289,000, which for us equated to about 6 positions being vacant. Next slide. Now, what that vacancy looked like for us, obviously on the far left under field, live release, clinic, shelter, education, that gives you an idea of how many total personnel operate in those particular, those particular divisions. As we look at it, our average kind of shortfall for the year was hanging around right about 20 personnel, significantly higher than the 6 that we had intended to hold. Some of that comes from the good luck of having some really, really good personnel. And what I mean by that is we literally, a lot of these were, we had the vacancies at a higher level. We had very qualified individuals at lower levels and entry-level staff that were promoted into those positions, and then the waterfall down. So we had supervisors that became managers, leads that became supervisors, and et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of that kind of held over. Part of the other piece of it was the fact that COVID, the city went out and basically kind of said, hey, we need to freeze a lot of our hiring because we don't know what the next year is going to look like. Once we finally kind of got the clearance to start moving forward and really start that hiring process, of course, every single department were in similar situations. everybody flooded human resources with, with requests for hiring and things like that. And so we started seeing some extended timelines for getting onboarding of those individuals. Currently, we have about 23 positions that are vacant. Pretty much all of those positions are currently either posted, we've made selections, or we're in the process of onboarding. So we hope real quickly to start seeing those positions start backfilling as we get approvals and people give their 2 weeks notice at their existing job and they come on with us. Obviously for field, there's some distinct challenges in that we still have a 12-week academy that we have to put the individuals through before they're an officer. We've got one academy that's going to be starting at the end of this month on the 29th. First academy we've held in quite some time because of COVID. And then we already have postings for the next academy. So we'll actually have 2 academies running concurrently for the first time. Next slide. Again, as we talk about some of those contributing factors, there is what's called the VRC, which is the Vacancy Review Committee. It's a process where the city, we identify a vacancy, we request to be able to fill it. The commission or the committee looks at it, and this is across the board for all San Antonio. They look at that position and they say, okay, is this something that it's a way to filter out fat, to make sure we're not filling positions that are in excess of what we need. So that does take 3 to 4 weeks. Of course, we have to create the posting. Once we get the Vacancy Review Committee approval, that usually takes about 3 weeks. Interviewing, reviewing candidates, all that is about another month. And then the actual processing of those individuals to come on board. One of the highlights that I would like to say is we were able to reach out to the VRC and actually get a waiver for the Vacancy Review Committee I think it was about 4 weeks ago, if memory serves. And what that means is that's going to cut 3 to 4 weeks off of all of our entry-level positions to get them fielded and hired. And we all know that really, as much as it's great to have a director and a chief operating officer and all that kind of stuff, our forward-facing, boots-on-the-ground folks are what really make the mission happen. So now we no longer have that 3 to 4 week committee that we have to wait on. Next slide.
I'm trying. There it goes.
Okay, so as I was alluding to, the majority of our positions, again, are shelter technicians, our animal care officers, our vet techs, and our live release program coordinators are now all exempt from that vacancy review committee process. We've done several reorganizations in field and live release. We've pretty much completed all of those, which is what I talked about in the last brief or in my opening comments, where we've kind of restructured things to be more efficient. And, we think that we're on the right path. And as FY22 starts to kick off, we should have the majority of these positions filled. And, we think we're going to be good to go moving forward into FY22. Does anyone have any questions on anything that I covered? Madam Chair?
No questions there. No one's indicating questions.
I have a question, George Garcia.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, George.
Yes, Shannon, our ACS, the field officers that go out, I know that in the past they get trained and then we lose. I don't know what the percentage of officers we lose right away. Yeah, when we interview these gentlemen or ladies, are we making them aware of what the job entails?
Yeah, so what we've done, George, is we actually evaluated that. I think we actually talked briefly about it in the last in the last board meeting, where we were kind of like, we know we're losing a lot of these folks, and kind of trying to develop strategies for how are we going to go about this not being a continuing trend. One of the things that we did was, number one, we've expanded our ability to a wider range of candidates. And what I mean by that is We just had a review of the position, and we changed the requirements, the prerequisites to be eligible from, it used to just be you had to have a minimum of 1 year verifiable animal handling experience, or we couldn't even talk to you. What we've done now is we've put that down, or law enforcement background. So we have folks that have gotten out of the military, they were military police officers, or they were in, they were in police departments, sheriff's departments, things like that. And they have a greater understanding of the law. Obviously, we can teach law and we can teach animal handling. The problem is we've got to make sure that folks aren't afraid of animals. And so the way we kind of address that, we've expanded our pool now, and also the evaluation now, instead of just being a, hey, we're going to select A, B, C, D, you're going to come in, sit in front of us, and we're going to interview you, we've implemented what we're calling field day. And what field day is comprised of is we actually we go through, and every single candidate that is qualified, either the law enforcement background or the animal handling experience, is invited to, we have a field day over a couple of days. And on that field day, when they come in, we've got stations set up. And so we have a cat station where the individual they're shown how to interact with a cat, how to handle a cat, how to move a cat, all that kind of stuff. And then they have to display their ability to be able to follow the direction and do so. Same thing for a dog station. We make sure that they know how to leash muzzle, we teach them that, and then we make them execute that actual task. And the mindset is, again, we can teach you elevated animal handling in the academy, but first and foremost, I need to make sure you're not afraid of animals. So that's a big piece of it. And then we also have a station set up where the individuals get to interact with officers. They talk with our investigators, they ask questions, we provide them information on what the job entails, and we're not sugarcoating it. Basically, if you don't like being around yucky stuff, this may not be the job for you. If if your temperament isn't conducive to you being yelled at by people and having to de-escalate those situations, then this may not be the job for you. And so the academy we're getting ready to kick off is the one that is the first one that we've been able to actually do the field day with. And so far, we've onboarded 3 of the 4 candidates, and it looks like it's a strong showing. So time will tell, but we're getting ready to do another field day the first week of August for our next academy class.
All right, sounds like we are improving the process, so that's very good.
Definitely trying, sir.
Any other questions for Shannon?
Karen Spear, I have a question.
Go ahead, Karen.
Shannon, I don't know, I know we used to do this where I worked. If you have one department has excess positions, instead of eliminating their positions, they would transfer them over to a division that needed them. Are they doing that in the city in some of those departments that have, like you say, the excess fat, that they can move those positions over to animal care services and y'all can make use of those?
So I can't really speak to them, trimming fat from, say, a means group and sending it to me, or vice versa. What I can speak to is we did an extensive amount of that restructuring during that kind of downtime during COVID, where we said, okay, this position may be excess of what we need here. Therefore, we're going to, in lieu that position, make it a different position in a place that needed that coverage more so. Typically, moving positions back and forth between departments would be through a RIF, where basically that position has gone away and the city would then push that particular individual into a vacancy in another department. But not a whole lot of, hey, this department's got too much, so ACS gets to steal that.
Amin, you had indicated a question.
Amin, Thomas, Shannon, just a follow-up question to George's. So what's the time frame to train officers and get them ready to be in the field, basically?
So we have the 12-week academy, which consists of 2 weeks of intensive school. They're in class training, just learning all of the the laws and municipal court processes and all that kind of stuff. After that, the next 10 weeks, they're doing shadowing in my bites investigation with a field training officer, certified field training officer. And at first, it's going to roll out where, the field training officer is going to say, kind of like if a board member was with us, hey, you've learned everything you need to know in school. Now you're going to sit here and you're going to watch how I handled it. And then it's going to evolve in a couple of weeks into, now you know how it's done on the spot. You've seen a few different incidences. Now I'm going to push you and make you take the lead. And then before long, it turns into the supervisor or the FTO basically stepping back and saying, this is you. I'm only going to get involved if it becomes a safety issue. And at the end of that 12 weeks, what we found is we have a pretty ready to go individual, ready to operate on their own.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Question? Nope.
I didn't see anyone.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shannon. Our next item on the agenda is item 6. And again, this is for you, Shannon. It's an overview of ACS's FY 2022 bond submittal project. So if you could fill us in on that.
All righty. So there's a couple of different aspects to this. We talked about our bond submittal and our clinic innovation project. All of you have obviously been into our clinic, and they do an astounding amount of work for the amount of people and the amount of space that they have at their disposal. For anybody who hasn't been into our clinic, it's about 2,500 total square feet, and we do over 17,000 spay-neuter surgeries a year. We do hospitalizations, neonate care, trauma, special surgeries, a whole gamut of things. And so basically what we wanted to do is evaluate to find out from a third party, not us looking at it, but have somebody from the outside take a look at our clinic operations, make recommendations to us, and then we also wanted to go out and kind of look at what would a more appropriate clinic look like for ACS and the work that we're currently doing. So again, we've got 2 paths, 1 goal. We've got ACS partners with the Department of Innovation, and what that means is back in February, we basically reached out to the Office of Innovation and we said, listen, guys, we know that there are some things going on over there as far as workload and capacity and things like that, but we want somebody that strictly deals with innovation, process improvement, things like that, to do a head-to-tail evaluation of our clinic operations and provide us a formal report on what your findings were to find out, we may be off base. We may just need to polish up our processes, and so we asked them to come in and do that. Brian Dillard's team over at Innovation were gracious enough to, they jumped at it. They, kind of looked at it from the perspective of, usually we get sent to a location because there's a problem by maybe, the city manager's office or somebody else. So they were really excited that we were inviting them in to take a look at us. And we told them, we're completely open. You'll get to view anything that you need to view. We'll take any input that you have to put. At the same time, we were looking at it from a perspective of, we know that we need a bigger clinic type of an operation. So once we got word that the 2022 bond was starting to take submissions, we started putting together some submissions and some ideas for submission and consideration for the bond process. So, next slide. This kind of gives you a timeline of how that clinic innovation project went. Again, we requested in February for that evaluation. It really took innovation a little bit of time to say, hey, how much manpower can I throw at it? What's it going to look like and all of that. Once we got into April, they came in, fully ready to go. They were embedded in my clinic. They reached out to external partners. Once we got into the May and June timeframe, they were reaching out to ADL, they were reaching out to San Antonio Humane Society, a lot of our major partners, to also get their input, the stakeholders that, you know, hey, what do you see at ACS in the clinic? They did extensive job shadowing where, you know, like Bethany had talked about, there's a very limited amount of space in there, but we whittled a little place out for those guys, and they got to stand back and really kind of watch what was going on. And then they, in detail, documented our processes, every process that we have in the clinic. And they went back, kind of compiled all their data, all their interviews and things like that. And then in July, they came back to us and basically said, here's a draft of your final report. We provided some feedback to them, and then they just published their final report, I believe it was last week, correct, Cynthia?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And, you know, I will tell you that the innovation report didn't really give us anything that was mind-numbing and shocking from a perspective of, oh my gosh, we didn't have any idea. Go to the next slide, please. What it really kind of told us is that the folks that we have in the clinic are exceptionally committed. You know, they work, well, they are scheduled for 10-hour days. They typically work 12, 13, 14-hour days. And they still are able to maintain a high commitment and a high morale. They also evaluated that the workload greatly exceeds what we should be able to do with the current resources that we have at our disposal. Obviously, manpower was an issue. They looked at it and they said, there's not enough people to physically take care of everything that you need to take care of. And space was really kind of that delta that they said, we've got to address the space and the equipment issue from a perspective of we don't have some basic diagnostic equipment that would make us much more efficient and much more effective. And we don't have sufficient space to really be able to conduct the recovery of these animals and the surgery of these animals in what we would consider an appropriate capacity of care. Next slide. So again, these were the three major takeaways that we had. They've recommended that we conduct a work study, which we will be entering into with them. What this is going to basically entail is we have to outline every single task that we do in the clinic and how long each one of those tasks takes. At that point, we will marry up basically how many hours in the day for how many vet techs, how many lead techs, how many veterinarians, and we'll come up and really figure out what that delta is. You know, do we need 5 veterinarians? Do we only need 3 veterinarians? We just need to do other things better. You know, things like that. Process improvement was the next big takeaway. Some of the things that they came up with was better use of technology, which also really kind of tied into facilities because there's not enough workstations to really be able to appropriately use that without interrupting the flow of the processes. And then just refinement of existing processes. And some of that was impacted by space, some of that was impacted by personnel, and some of it was just, hey, we need to tighten our game up a little bit. And then finally, of course, facilities. They recommended that we explore expansion of existing facilities to really right-size what we're doing currently and what we will likely be doing in the very near future with what we actually have here on ACS. And again, I touched briefly on the insufficient diagnostic capabilities. So as we kind of look at the response to the innovation study, in order for us to have truly sustainable and optimal operations or operations, like we put in the... No.
You guys proof these, I'm just saying.
We need to not only implement the efficiencies that they recommended, but at least right now, we need to identify what are the mission critical programs, because right now we're doing a lot. And until we start to improve the processes, the manpower, and the facilities, we really have to drive down and say, what are the mission critical programs that we need to do, we have to do to get animals out of here alive? We need to look at those non-mission critical programs and say, do we need to do away with this program altogether, or can we trim it sufficiently so that we have enough bandwidth? And then also, there's the alternative of if we do have to trim a program or cut a program out of things that we do, what are alternative sources that we may be able to do that? And then, of course, implementing the efficiencies as they recommended kind of goes without saying. Next slide. Okay, so this is kind of a brief outline, and it's super, super simplified. It's far more complex than this, but this is about as much as I can digest, so I figured I would pass it on to you. First of all, we've got the department submits their project. We did that back in, I believe it was March timeframe. We actually designed what we think ACS's clinic or hospital needs would be in 2025, 2027, 2030. And we kind of drafted that up and costed it out. At that point, we submitted that to Public Works and to Budget, and we're in the process right now of trying to determine what would be an appropriate funding source. And what I mean by that is there's two potential funding sources for this. One would be a capital outlay or a capital improvement project, which would mean that it would be in the 2022 budget and we can start running with it immediately. That's a large ask for the size of project and the scope of project that we're talking about. Or would it be better suited for a bond? If it goes into the bond, it'll basically go onto a 2022 ballot. It'll be voted upon. City council would approve it, and then we would move into design, construction, all that. The two biggest differences in the capital improvement and that bond project are going to be timeliness. So if it goes into capital improvements, if they find a way to fit it into there, then we start rolling with it when October comes around, start designing and doing all that kind of stuff. If it goes into the bond, there's necessarily going to be a delay because there are many bond projects that have to get through the process. So the next steps, if it's selected for the bond, is going to be, we would host, town halls, get district support. Obviously, we would seek board approval for, does the board buy in on this? Does the community buy in on this? And then the voters would either approve or deny the bond project. And at some point, several years down the road, construction would begin. So really the two biggest things, like I said, are capital, it gets a fresh start, and it's fast, but it's 2022 money. Bond, it takes a while to get through, but it's a huge loan that the city takes out for streets and all the other kinds of stuff that we do to improve large projects. Just to put it into perspective, this project is about, right now, we're estimating about a $17 million project. It would take part of the EBI, the euthanasia building, which was built in 2007, and it was huge because we were doing a ton of euthanasia. It would pare that down to a very, very small area, repurpose that for clinic, and build on 6,500 square feet. So it would triple the size of our clinic operations, double the size of our spay-neuter capacity in-house, and obviously provide much more hospitalization, the ability to do better isolation and things like that for cats and for dogs. And that is all I have for you. Any questions?
Anybody have any
Don't see
questions
any.
for Shannon?
Doesn't appear to be. Oh, Kathy.
I just wondered, the bond project is going to be lengthy. Has there been any thought put to whether there's some temporary patch that could be done to provide some additional space to the clinic through the 2022 budget process to maybe give them some kind of relief, and then also put the balance or the rest of what you need into the bond program?
The only thing that we would really be able to do that would fall in line with something like that, ma'am, would be probably kind of starting the repurposing of EBI. So, you know, walling off some of that. The problem with it is that is being developed into the office spaces for the veterinarians and things like that. It doesn't really provide us the additional true operational space or capability for the, you know, for surgical and things like that. As far as the way the plan is laid out right now, there's nothing that would really, the way it's laid out, provide us any additional capacity in the short term.
Okay, I didn't know how you were going to repurpose that EBI, and I didn't know if maybe that was going to be part of, you know, could temporarily be used for isolation or, you know, something else to at least move something out of the clinic, because boy, I know they're just absolutely cramped for space over there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And
okay, just a thought.
It is, yeah, and just so if those of you that have been on campus know that we have our livestock area that's right next to, you know, Building 6. That would be utilized for the expansion. This money also includes, being able to develop a new livestock area with a barn to replace the one that we would be cannibalizing, as well as remodeling the existing clinic. And my thought about remodeling of the existing clinic would be to potentially use it for an additional free and low-cost contracted spay-neuter facility, but it would be here on our campus.
Ooh.
So finding another vendor to come in, contract that building, which would give us an immensely greater amount of spay-neuter. Of course, we're talking a couple of years down the line, depending on which program it went with.
Okay, so.
Any other questions for Shannon? No.
I'm sorry, I can't see Rita. Unfortunately, my computer said I'm using too much of the CPU, and it turned off everyone's picture.
Okay. Well, if anybody has any questions for Shannon, just give a yell. There we go. Okay, I don't see any hands right now. I'm going to move on to item number 7. Item number 7 and item number 8 are Cynthia. She's going to give her first briefing, and item number 7 is she's going to explain to us the changes to the Texas Open Records Meeting Act. So she will explain the letter that we got from the city. Okay, Cynthia, all yours.
We can't hear you, Cynthia.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Can hear you now.
Must have muted me when it took everyone's pictures away. As you guys are aware, due to the risks associated with COVID, provisions were placed by the governor on the Texas Open Meeting Act. On June 30th of 2021, his office approved the request by the Office of the Attorney General to lift the suspension of the provisions made to the Open Meetings Act. The suspension will lift at 12:01 a.m. on September 1st, 2021. Thus, as of September 1st, 2021, all provisions of the Open Meeting Act will be effective, and all Texas governmental bodies subject to the Open Meetings Act must conduct their meeting in full compliance with the Open Meetings Act as written in statute. And so basically what we're looking at is, of course, as an advisory board, you're considered a governing body of a municipal facility, and therefore we're going to be returning to in-person meetings. So we're anticipating returning to in-person meetings for our September meeting. Long-term instructions may change, but currently these are the details of what's going to happen at our next meeting. I know that a few of you guys indicated you would like to continue to join remotely when Rita talked to you guys about this prior to this meeting, and we will do our best to honor your preferences. Retaining some virtual options moving forward may be available, but they will be limited. The presiding officer and the majority of the board will need to attend in person. So whoever is the officer presiding over the meeting, which of course normally is the board chair, and then at least enough members of the board who can vote to create a quorum would have to attend the meeting in person. If you do not attend in person, as of right now, it looks like you would not be able to necessarily vote. Also, due to recent changes that Shannon was discussing earlier to our annex, we're no longer going to be able to utilize the annex for our meetings. The space just is not large enough anymore. And so we are looking for alternate locations to host the advisory board meetings at, and we'll let you guys know as soon as that's selected. So if everyone can email me by August 30th on whether or not you are able to attend in person, this is going to give me time to verify that a quorum is going to be available and to seek out additional in-person attendees if we do not reach that quorum. And then, of course, also we have our board officer elections that have to be completed by October 1st. And so that September meeting is very important so that we have a quorum and we can conduct those officer elections, because that is the only meeting we have between now and October 1st to do so. And I'll talk a little bit about the details on how we're going to do that next. But right now on the Open Meetings Act, does anyone have any questions?
I do not see any hands, Cynthia.
Thank you, Rita. All right, guys.
So next, Cynthia, I'm going to, if you'll give the board a quick update on the process for the upcoming officer elections.
Sure. So I know you guys have all been through the process before, but I do want to just give you a refresher on what to expect. Each fiscal year, board officers must be elected by the advisory board to preside over the board for the upcoming year. This must occur before September 30th, and so we will need, as I mentioned, to hold our meeting elections at the next meeting. The officer positions are chair, vice chair, and secretary. Would you guys please submit your nominations for these positions to me via email no later than the Friday before the meeting, which is let's see here, the 3rd, September 3rd. And that'll give me some time to get the nominations organized and to prepare for the vote at the meeting. Okay, does anybody have any questions on that one?
Nope, I don't see anybody's hand, Cynthia. Can you still not see people?
I cannot, no.
Okay, all right, there's no hands up.
I just see a bunch of yellow triangles.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for those updates, Cynthia, appreciate it. The next thing on our agenda is public comments. So now is the time for public comments. Cynthia, do you have any people that have sent in public comments?
Yes, as of right, we have 3 callers who have called in public comments. We will do the called in comments before we do the written comments. We have 12 written comments for this evening, which I will be reading. As I read through, for the called in comments, each individual will be given a total of 3 minutes to speak. At the end of the 3 minutes, you want to make sure you've concluded your thought, because at that point we will have to mute the microphone and move on to the next individual who is signed up to speak. Once everyone who is called in to speak has completed giving their comments, I will then read through the written comments that were sent in this evening prior to 4 p.m. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to pull up some phone numbers.
Hey, Cynthia, prior to reading and then making available the callers that have comments, do we need to go through Robert's, the rules associated with it?
That's, yes, sir, that would be good, yes. Unfortunately, I did not receive further detail on those. The only information that I received at this point is actually the 3 minutes. The agenda items or the comments would preferably be geared towards our agenda items that we posted for the meeting. And that is what I have, sir. I'm also unable to see phone numbers. Hold on just a moment. Okay, so we have a caller, 2537. Would you like, you requested to provide public comments. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Excellent. And good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Jay Johnson. My question is pretty simple. What is the process that we would go through, or your organization would go through, for the ACS to then work toward attaining a no-kill shelter status? So in other words, what is required from a budgeting, a planning, and a training perspective? And that's it. Thanks much.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have 9043. Caller 9043. All right, and then the final caller is 5122. Caller whose phone number begins with 5122. Did you still wish to give public comment? All right. At this point, I will move on to the written comments. The first comment is from Amanda Wise. San Antonio ACS has killed 150 healthy, sweet, adoptable dogs in the last 2 weeks alone. There's a serious issue in San Antonio, and drastic steps must be taken to help protect the lives of companion animals in your city. San Antonio ACS puts out urgent lists every hour, but sometimes the list can be 5 to 11 pages long. The final euthanasia list does not come out until approximately 90 minutes prior to euthanasia begins at 12:30. This is not enough time for networkers, fosters, adopters, and rescues to make a plan to save these dogs. Most of the dogs killed lately have only been at the facility a few days before being killed. Would it be possible to close intake for short periods of time to give the animals at the facility an honest chance to be saved? Why are so many dogs coming into ACS? Are dogs legally allowed to roam? And if so, why? Why aren't measures being taken to force pet owners to be more responsible? If they are not, what can be done to get some implemented? Mandatory spay and neuter would go a long way to help prevent future suffering and needs to be implemented immediately in San Antonio. I hope that you all want what everyone who has spoken and emailed you wants. That is to stop seeing perfectly healthy adoptable dogs dying for space. Please keep us up to date on measures you implemented to help with these problems. The next submission is from Cindy Agonis. San Antonio ACS Board. San Antonio ACS has killed, oh, I'm sorry, this is a repeat, 150 animals. I'm sorry, that one was a repeat. Cindy Leach. In 2012 to 2017, there was a bond issue for stray kennels to be built for $2,200,000. I'm sorry, $2,200,000 that were not built on ACS property, but on ADL property. ADL signed a 25-year lease to pull 3,184 animals per year and given title to those kennels. They have never reached their numbers, and amendments have been made to their contract to avoid having to pay the $27 per animal penalty and to extend their time to fulfill their contract. ACS is killing animals because they have no space, so why why is ACS not forcing ADL to take in more animals? I want to know, since ACS has over 45,000 followers on Facebook, why can they not also start networking the dogs that are being released to be killed there? That would help both SAPA and ACS a great deal if both were networking, since some people only follow ACS and or SAPA. The next submission is from Gail Rodriguez. As a networker for these dogs, I am wondering why can the time of release get more time minutes for those dogs to be killed? Can all these dogs be saved when out-of-state adopters, fosters are able to go through a rescue? What are those abilities to make this issue better? Why do you have so many owner surrenders their dog, and you do not turn them around knowing that this shelter is a high kill shelter? Thank you for your time. Next submission is Jessica Richards. Dear ACS Advisory Board, San Antonio needs your help. So far this year, 12,500 dogs and cats have been taken in by ACS, over which 1,000 have been euthanized. While the ACS numbers may not look shocking, they don't show the full story of the animal crisis that is unfolding. Every month, hundreds of abandoned and neglected dogs are taken off the San Antonio streets by private rescue organizations. Each neglected dogs and cats are taken off the San Antonio streets by these private rescue organizations. Each animal is thoroughly vetted, sterilized, housed, and rehomed without ACS ever knowing they existed. Rescues also pull hundreds of dogs each month from ACS and SAPA, which greatly helps ACS meet their live release rate goal of 90% or greater. Over the past few months, rescues have been inundated with animals. They are drowning in animals, debt and sorrow as they try to keep their head above water, while healthy adoptable animals lose their lives daily at ACS. We all understand that money is tight, but something needs to be done. Currently, ACS conducts roughly 30,000 spays, neuters annually between all their contracted sites. Please help us and the animals by pushing for 100,000 more spays, neuters in the annual budget so that we can end this crisis. I would like to ask that you consider offering 10,000 free or reduced spay-neuter opportunities to 501c3 rescues within Bexar County. The animals and the citizens of San Antonio deserve better. The next submission is from John Bachman. I will assume you will realize from the comments of others to this meeting that a new group of concerned citizens is standing up to replace some of us worn-out activists. Unfortunately, many of the issues they will be addressing are the same ones we have addressed for so many years. I do hope with their new energy and perseverance, they will be successful. There is some new management at the city level and new city council members with whom they have been or will be in contact. So I would urge this board, as we have urged you many times, to start really representing the people of not just ACS management. Work with these new concerned people to give the council and city manager valid suggestions to improve the operations of ACS and to really address the problems concerning the animal situations in San Antonio. As a minimum goal should be, increase the availability of free and low-cost spay and neuter surgeries. The 100,000 we have always asked for is probably not enough now. Do a proper study to get a firm number. Adopt mandatory spay-neuter, or at least ensure that all required are done at all citizens who want spay-neuter can get it. Support all rescues with services. Inspect ACS and evaluate operation and staffing level. Increase live release so no healthy treatable animal is killed. Next submission is Maria Brickham. Dear ACS, I am excited to hear about your virtual meeting today with regards to the Animal Care Services Program. Myself and many others are absolutely horrified at the astounding rates of death occurring at the shelter and are eager to help alleviate some of the obvious dysfunction. I'm here to tell you that no-kill programs are working all over the place, starting with Holland, where there are no stray animals, who has completely cured the pet overpopulation by implementing a modified no-kill formula. She includes a link at this point to DutchReview.com. Austin, Palm Valley, and Edinburgh, Lake Jackson, all in Texas, and parts of Colorado, and sporadic shelters all over the place are making major headway and improving the welfare of these animals and putting an end to the unnecessary suffering and death incurred due to human irresponsibility, negligence, and stupidity. No Kill Advocacy Center is also inserted as a link. Animal cross-state transports are doing wonders, as many northern states don't have the overpopulation problems experienced in the South. Another link from death row to adoption. Colorado is a well-known safe haven, as are other northern states where pet overpopulation isn't an issue. In fact, I know a girl in Victoria, Texas, right close to you, who runs a rescue and has constant transports there, who won't even adopt her rescues out in Texas because the demand where she drops them off is insatiable. Another link, tens of thousands of out-of-state shelter dogs. Myself and my team of animal welfare advocates would so love to see you successful at the forefront of these efforts, leading the way to start a new chapter going forward. We can put people on the moon and out in space, have robotics that perform a multitude of processes and functions. At this point, I've reached 300 words and will stop. Next submission is from Sheila Rhoda Osborne. Dear ACS Advisory Board, San Antonio needs your help. So far, we have been taken in by ACS. San Antonio needs your help. So far this year, over 12,500 dogs and cats have been taken in by ACS, of which over 1,000 have been euthanized. While the ACS numbers may not look shocking, they don't show the full story of the animal crisis that is unfolding. Every month, hundreds of abandoned and neglected dogs and cats are taken off the San Antonio streets by private rescue organizations. Each animal is thoroughly vetted, sterilized, housed, and rehomed without ACS ever knowing they existed. Rescues also pull hundreds of dogs each month from ACS and SAPA, which greatly helps ACS meet their live release goal of 90% or greater. Over the past few months, rescues have been inundated with animals. They are drowning in animals' debt and sorrow as they try to keep their head above water, while healthy adoptable animals lose their lives daily at ACS. We all understand that money is tight, but something more needs to be done. Currently, ACS conducts roughly 30,000 spay-neuters annually between all contracted sites. Please help us and the animals by pushing for 100,000 spay-neuters in the annual budget so that we can end this crisis. I would also like to ask that you consider offering 10,000 free or reduced spay-neuter opportunities to 501c3 rescues within Bexar County. The animals in the city and citizens of San Antonio deserve better. Next submission is Tammy Kukla. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments to be added to the meeting. Thank you to the ACS individual staff members who truly care about the animals and do it for the animals. 48 adoptable dogs euthanized in 6 days last week. 17 adoptable dogs euthanized Monday. 6 adoptable dogs euthanized yesterday. How is the shelter leadership picking those who are to be euthanized? What is being done to make space to prevent euthanasia? Add fosters, add rescue partners. What are the policies and procedures? What is the shelter doing to ask for help from the community and share they are drowning and need help? How many kennels are open and have to remain open? What is done for enrichment for the animals in care? How can volunteers remote and in-person help network dogs in need? What resources are needed? Clem was posted on ACS Facebook page and one of the dogs euthanized last week. What happened here? Why was King Kong picked to be euthanized yesterday? Is the shelter doing enough outreach to the community to get animals adopted? Why do so many stray animals come in from field? Are the officers actively out looking for dogs in need, or are there dumping areas? Or is the community dumping animals and calling them in as strays? How can citizens work with leadership to form a crisis response team to help save more? How come there are only minutes or a few hours to network last call animals? Why can't more time be allocated? Next submission is from Tanya Jackson. I'm writing to express my concern over the killing of so many healthy and adoptable dogs at ACS. The current shelter was built in 2007, and since then the population of San Antonio has doubled. More people, more animals. It's obvious that we need a second shelter to accommodate the amount of animals coming in daily. A shelter is supposed to be a safe haven for an animal until it can find a home, not a place to go for a few days just to be euthanized. This overcrowding at the shelter is not going away. So much more needs to be done to advocate for these animals so they can get adopted. Final submission is from Vicki Stearman. I would like to express my unhappiness with the budget survey and the lack of will by our city council to address the apparent overwhelming issue of overpopulation of cats and dogs in San Antonio. I would like to see the city of San Antonio address the following issues concerning pets and pet welfare. Number one, the city of San Antonio allows citizens to breed and sell puppies with little enforcement of current ordinances requiring litter permits and sale permits. Two, the city of San Antonio does not serve warrants issued to those who are repeatedly issued citations for infractions concerning pet welfare. I am specifically upset about the failure of the city to compel citizens who have had their dogs picked up by ACS and do not get their dogs spayed and neutered within the 30 days. The city of San Antonio does very little to prosecute perpetrators of abuse and neglect. Number four, the city of San Antonio does not treat the overwhelming and very apparent problem of overpopulation as the problem to be solved. The live release rate does nothing to solve the problem. The city of San Antonio does nothing of significance to educate its populace or compel them to vaccinate against parvo and distemper. Hence, we have high rates of both at our shelter. The city of San Antonio offers too few low-cost spay-neuter opportunities. The city of San Antonio used to have a very robust, comprehensively covered survey for the budget process. For the last 2 years, it has been very weak. I suspect that it's because in the previous 2 years before, the responses by citizens concerning ACS were very high and the council is not interested in tackling this problem. The city of San Antonio does not adequately. At this point, I've reached 300 words and will stop. That concludes our written submissions for public comment.
Those are people that.
Okay, thank you very much, Cynthia. At this point, that concludes our last agenda item. Our next scheduled meeting is for Wednesday, September 8th. Normally, we meet on the third Wednesday of every other month, but due to scheduling issues, the September meeting is moved up 1 week. So it's going to be the second Wednesday of September. So that's all the information I have. I think it's been a very good meeting, lots of good information. So with this, do I have a motion to adjourn? Kathy, do I have a second?
Karen Spears, second.
Karen Spears, second. Okay. Now, with this, we do not have to take an individual roll call. So if you will all unmute, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, so the ayes have it. No one is opposed. All right, everybody. I look forward to seeing you face to face in September. Have a good rest of the summer. And again, reach out, please, if you are not comfortable with in-person meeting in September. So if anything else comes up, feel free to contact us. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Everybody have a great summer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy.
You
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.